Okay, let's do maybe one last example that would involve again those subroutines and function as well. And I guess we'll do something similar to page 201 if you have the textbook. It shows we're going to calculate the density of a state. Okay, so that example on page of the book here, let's see if we can show that in here. Page 201. See if it matches up. So here, right, we're going to calculate the density of a state. So for example, the Hawaii with that with that number, an area divided by that, and so I guess the population of 1.4 million divided by the land area to get the density. Okay, so instead of just doing this, we're going to create a list box. So the output will look just like that, right? But we're going to modify this so you have a list box, one for the state, one for the population, one for the land mass. And we'll select those from those three list boxes, and then we do the calculation. Okay? So it'll be similar to this example here. So the first part here, as you can see, it calls a subroutine called describe task, right? This one, all it does is just basically you give the instructions or information about what's being calculated here. The second call, this is also a subroutine because there's no, we're not, it's not on the right side of the equal sign, and it's not inside a parentheses for some type of expression. Okay, so we know those are subroutines. Okay, if you see it like this just by themselves, these are usually subroutines. If you see that it's on the right side of the equal sign or inside a parentheses, then those are functions. Okay, so let's build this application here. So I'm going to start a new project. We'll call this one here population density. Okay. So here is back to our typical form. And I'm going to show my toolbox. And I'll just make it kind of big here so we can see full screen. So I need let's put labels here, okay? So 3 labels here. Could put here, the first label is going to be called state. Okay, the state's name. And I'll call this just LBL state. And we'll change the font size to, again, it'll be like 20. I'll make it big so we can see it. Might be too big. Oh, that's just fine. So state. And then I need a list box for those states. Put it here. Get kind of big here. Just add maybe like, I guess 5 states. And this is the LST states. I'm going to change the font size to 20. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the collection. So go to items, collection, click it. I'm going to add, what do we have? Alaska, California, Hawaii, Ohio, and of course we want Wisconsin to be in there. Okay, so those are the states. I should probably call this states. So I'm going to copy this, both of them, and then just control drag for the right side. Actually what? No, we just do one is fine, sorry. So we'll just put it right in the center, it's okay. Or right below here. Okay, so right here's okay. And then I need a button to do the calculation. So make it kind of big so you can see it really well. And this is the BTN just display is fine. And the font, I'll make it, well, I'll change the font to something kind of big. 20. Change the color too so you can see easier. We'll just use the light blue. And then the text will say display density. Okay. And then the output will also go to another list box. So we'll make it right below here. Make it really big all the way across. And this is the LST output. And it should be blank. I'll make the font a little bit bigger so we can see when we write the data to it. Maybe also, I'll use maybe, I guess 15 is, so let's try 15. And I want to center my form, click on the form, and then center into the center screen. Okay. So when I click on Alaska, it's going to give us some data, California and so on, some data. So we need the population and the land area. Okay, we'll do that in the code. All right, so now double click on the button, go right into the code, and let me turn all these off so we can have more space. So we need to set up some stuff in here. Okay, the first thing we need to set up are the data for the for each state. So we'll just say dim. The first state is Alaska, right? So Alaska is what's the Alaska population as integer. We'll set that to, let's just say, I don't know, 400,000. I'm not sure that maybe not that many people, but let's just 400,000. And then dim the California population. Let's spell it out. California population. There's some guessing number here. Let's just say that they are at 15 million or something. Probably more. Let's say 50 million. Or 25. 25 million, is that it? Can't tell. 1, 2, yeah, too many zeros. That one. That one. Yeah, so 25 million. And then the Hawaii population is at, the book has 142 and then 40, so 1.425 million. Then the Ohio population is, let's just say, 800,000. And then Wisconsin population is at, where are we? About 5 million? Okay. Oh. So we got, these are your these are the populations, so we can put here populations. We also need data for the land area. Bless you. Land areas. So dim Alaska land area as integer as well. We'll just call this some arbitrary numbers, 12,000. And then California I should say 9,000. Then Hawaii where the book is 6423. Then Ohio land area, let's just say that's about maybe like I don't know, 7,500. And then Wisconsin. How much land do we have here? Let's just say that it's 10,000. Okay? So we have those data. So now we want to if you look at the example, right, it says has a message, this program displays the published density of the state. We just have to say displays the population density of our state. Okay, we just put that there. So you will display the message first. So we'll just say we'll display that to the list box, which is the output. So here we'll put display or like display or describe. Put the describe task. Okay. So basically we're going to add that to the list box, the list output dot items dot add. And we could do like the book has. Let's do it first. Let's add it. Let's clear it first. They're clear. So every time we click the buttons, it always clears it. So clear. Clear first, remove everything, then now we can add the message as follows. So it would say this program displays the. Okay, we'll move to the next line. So every item here you add is a new line. Okay, if you don't, then you have a really long line of text. It will stretch across the list box, and you have the arrow key. You have the scroll bar showing. So items that add. The next is the population density of a state. We'll just say that. Okay, just 2 lines. Right, so if you run it now, you see that that's all it does. It displays the message here. It's pretty small. Should probably change that size. Okay, and then below that we'll do the calculation, display the density. And you click Alaska, and then we're going to check for the input. If it's Alaska, then we do the calculation, and then you click on it. It will say display for the state of, we can say here Alaska if you want, but it will be selected, so that's understood. Okay. So let me just change these the property here to make it a little bit bigger because mine is too small. I want to change the font size to something big, like 20. Okay. Okay. All right. So we got the message displayed. The next thing is we need to read the input. Okay. So we're going to read here, read the input. And the input is going to be coming from the list box, so we'll just do here a dim state as not state, but Yeah, state is fine. So state as string, right? It's a string. And we'll read the right array from the list box, the list of states. And we want to get the current selected state, so it's just basically this dot text. Okay, so the state will be the name of the state, the actual state's name. And then we're going to check the state. So if state is equal to Alaska, I think we capitalize Alaska. And this is one way, okay? So there are many ways to do this. You can check the index like we did last time, which is fine, okay? If Alaska, then we want to say that, so if you look at the formula for the calculation, density is equal to population divided by land area, okay? So we want to declare a variable here as well. And see, as you build the application, you see that, oh, I need this, I need that, I need, and so forth. And so you can keep adding those together here. So I need one for the population, a variable for the density, and one for the land area. So I have those already, right? Which is fine, right? I have those already. Yeah, I just need the density. So dim for density as integer. So if state is Alaska, the density is equal to the Alaska population divided by the Alaska land area, right? Else if state is equal to California, then density is the California's population divided by California land area. Okay, so you can finish the rest. State is Hawaii, then density is Hawaii population divided by Hawaii the land area. Else if state is, we could have used the select case is fine too. Maybe less to type. Ohio, then density is Ohio's land population divided by Ohio land mass area. And then one more. Wisconsin. Density is Wisconsin population divided by Wisconsin's land area. Else, put density is 0. Right, just say that it's 0. So we got the calculation. We kind of read the input and then read the calculation at the same time. So that's the input, and then this is the calculation or process, okay, or calculation. So we calculate that density and so forth. We're done, and so now we can go and then add the output. So down here is the output, right? So what we output, outputting the so here I would say LST output. I'm gonna add that to the list. Dot items. Dot add. We'll put a blank one here. So put a blank space in here just to give it a blank line. If you don't, then it's gonna add it to the next line. So initially we added this message, 2 lines. These 2 lines here. The next line should be blank, and then the line after that is what's in the book. It says list output.items.add, and we're going to say the population density of a state, and then here we can put the concatenation for the state, which is in this case will be the state, right? Because we use the state to select that state. whatever that state is. And then we can concatenate that again with the keyword is, and then start a new line because and then I'll put that to the next line, and here we have the density. So notice density I have it as the integer number, so we might have we might lose the decimal numbers. So which is fine. We'll just omit the decimal numbers. So density, and then in people per square mile. Okay, so that is the output. In addition to the so this is also we're actually basically outputting to the text box, list box too. But all right, see if this works. Let's run this, and I'm gonna select the Hawaii to make sure the numbers match. It'll be 219, 221. Well, I lost the numbers in there, but it's okay. So we have this line here is the first two lines over here. These two first lines over there. Okay. The density display the density of a state of Hawaii. So the population density of Hawaii, because we have it so that you select the state. The state is equal to the selected state. Okay, if I change to California, it changes. Notice it does not add to the bottom of the list because we clear it first, right? Right here, we clear it first every time we run the button. So this is California's density. Alaska. Oh, that's pretty small. And Wisconsin. Okay. So this is working as I guess we expected without the decimal numbers, which is fine. Okay, so now if you look at this, you see that my code is pretty long, right? It's a long list of code. What you should do then now is you can break this into subroutines. So this part here can break out into a subroutine of its own just to show the information. Okay, so I'm gonna I'm gonna copy this, and down here at the bottom, right after the sub, we're going to add our own subroutine called describe task. Okay, so this one takes no parameter. We're not passing anything to it. Basically, all it does is just this. Right? You just put the message to the list box. And the list box, because it's inside the form, it's in the form, is available everywhere. So we don't have to pass that directly to that task, the subroutine. So we got that out, and so therefore we can go back up to your code here and remove all of these and replace it with the subroutine called describe task. And we call it that here. This is called a subroutine, sub-procedure. And they always use the parentheses here for both subroutines and functions. So we call that there, it will display that information down here. So again, if you run it, it should still work, okay? We call it, and it runs the information here, comes back out. So when you run this code, it goes down here, line by line, all the way down to the task. From this point, it's going to jump down to what that is, and he's going to go and run this line, this, that, and oh, it finishes, it's done. He's going to come back to where it was called, which is right here. And then it jumps out to the next line, and it continues down the list. Okay? You saw earlier that all my code were here, right? So that's why everything here inside this subroutine has to be executed, has to be run first, and then once it's done, it comes back out where it was left off. Okay, it doesn't just keep going and then it never comes back. Okay, it will always come back to where it was left off and then continue down the list. Okay, so we get that part. Now the input part here, we just read the input. We'll just leave this as is. Now, down here. So I should probably okay do it. So this whole part here, this whole thing. All we're doing is we just basically calculating the density, right? Okay, we just calculate density. So I'm gonna move all of these here. Okay, I'll copy these, and we need basically the state, and that's all. We just need the state, which is this variable here. So on the bottom, right below that, and returns the density. So this would be a function. Just say get density. And I need one parameter is for the state, which is a string. So I can say state here, same thing as string. I'm returning back the density, which is in this case as integer. And then we paste the code right in here. Okay. And then finally, the last thing you need to do is you need to return the density. Okay, the density doesn't exist here, so you want to dim another variable called density as integer. So we have that calculation just in the local function here. Oh, we have all this Alaska and Alaska land, all this air formation here, right? You need to pass those in here too. So if you notice, this is very, let's see. If you look at this function, this is kind of repeating, right? Density is equal to that, density equal to that. So if you can say, hey, you know what, if the state is really Alaska, then yeah, this one here a little bit it's a little bit tricky. The reason why is because Alaska population here, if you go up here in the code, they're all out here, right? So these are not available to the set routine, and that means that that means I have to pass all this data to the state. So let's do this. I mean, there are several ways to do this. One way is to make these in the global space. Okay, so let's do that. We haven't done global yet. So all these variable here, we'll make it available everywhere. So we're basically gonna copy this, and you can cut them or just drag them. It's fine. Gonna cut them and put outside in the global space out here. Okay, so they're available to every other functions and method and so on, because these are pretty much like numbers that you can easily access from anywhere else. So actually, it will make more sense to use these as constants. But that's okay. So it's outside of the subroutine, so they are no longer local variables, but they're global variables. So that means when you access it, you can call it, you just grab it right away. And if you scroll down to your function, you'll see that all those red lines are now gone because you can access those data out here. Okay? So the Alaska population and the land area are available just based on the state here. So not return gas density. You can, but a little bit tricky how that's worked. Just the density. Just the density variable which we declare inside here. So return that data back. And then if you go up here, to the thing here, so we can delete all these here. All of these we don't need anymore. And all we need is basically, I want to say density equals that get density method, and it needs a state. So basically we just pass a state variable here to that density method function. It will calculate that for us. So it calls the get density function, we pass a state, whatever the state is. So it goes down in here into the get density function, receive the state, and then it compares the state to those, whatever the state is, it does the calculation, and then it sends the total with the density back to us. Bless you. It returns the density back to us as an integer type. We go back up here, and then now density is equal to that number. So the last part is the output. So this, as you can see, there's no calculation here. Okay, so we're gonna basically copy this, and then down here, and right above here is fine. We're going to say sub, what do we call the, maybe show density. Okay, and if you look at this here, you have the density parameter and the state parameter to pass to. So it takes two parameters, because now if I put it in here, right, I need the density and the state. So that means I have to pass it to this subroutine, the state. So again, that's the state as string, then the density as integer. Okay, so now this satisfies this method subroutine. I can remove this now and replace it with the subroutine call, which is show density. And if you put the paren, it will show you that it needs two parameters, two arguments, the state. And that's why I named this the same names. It's easier to relate them than the density. So that's the output. So if you look at the code here, it's much shorter now. We describe the task, we read the input. So this density here can actually be moved up to the top, way up here, because it would be weird down here by itself. And this read here can be anywhere. You can put it here, or you can put above, it's fine too. It just makes sense to put up here, because we're not doing anything yet. We just read it first. We're not output anything. So you usually put all your dimensions together, and they will describe the task. We will process it, and then we output to the screen. Okay. So if you run it now, you see that it should still work just like before. Alaska. Okay. And work just as before. Okay, I know we're kind of fast here, but any questions on how we broke this down into their own modules or reusable code? Okay, so you can see that you break that into show density, and it just makes more sense to just say show it, and then you pass data to it if it needs to have those data to be displayed or used. Again, subroutine, I'm not returning any data, so there's no return statements. Same thing here. This one takes no parameter, it's blank. Okay, no parameter added to it. All it does is just basically put this message to the list box. And then the function density here, get density, takes just a state, so we can use that inside our decision making. And then once we get that in here all done, all calculated, then we return that density back as an integer type. So whoever or whatever calls this get density method or function gets the value returned. and that's pretty much that's it for this one. Okay, so one last thing I want to show you, and then we can see where we'll go over the homework assignments. So the read input here, this is another piece here. This is really simple, but sometimes it could get complicated. So usually when you read the input, so I want to do something like this, right? You notice we have a describe the task, we process it, we output it, right? So it will make more sense. Here we'll say get input. Okay? So you should get a subroutine to read and bring the inputs so you can use them. So I will dim the state as is. I'll put it up here. Okay? So I'm not going to read the input here in the function here. I will read it inside another subroutine called get input. So let me clear this out. So I got a state and the density. So the density is calculated down here. I need to read the state, right? So you put the input method or input procedure to read the input. And in this example, I'm just reading the state. And I'll show you again an example of you can pass data to the subroutine using by reference. Okay, I mentioned this a little bit last time about pass by value and by reference. So when you pass the data, for example, you pass a state to this density, you pass just the reference or the value to that function. So initially state was Alaska, then I'm just saying pass Alaska, the word Alaska to that function, right? And then the actual state parameter still holds the Alaska. And if I change the value inside the function or the subroutine, it had no effect to the original value here. Okay, so I'll say here read input. I'll put a note here, pass data or by reference. Okay. What that means is I'm going to pass a state to this method or this subroutine, and I will read the input inside this subroutine, and then if I change the state, right? If I change the value, then it's also changed the value out here. Okay? I'm not returning anything, but because it's chained to this variable here, and then if I change the value inside that subroutine, it also changes this location because this and they're pointing to the same memory address. So that's the reference. Reference is same memory address. Okay. This is the state here. I'll just say pass by value. Okay, just copy. Should say pass a copy of data only. Okay. So no memory address for that state, just the value of that state is. So let's get the input sub created down here. I'm going to do right in here, added a sub. So I'm going to do sub, and then I would just say get input. I need the state, right? So state as string, and then it's a subroutine, doesn't return anything back. So all I'm doing, this is a very simple one, so all I'm doing is just basically I'm going to say state is going to be reading the txt or the lst states dot text, the currently selected state. Okay, and in front of it here I need to put the keyword by ref, not b but by. Okay, if you look at this, the by reference state. Here, there's no by reference in front. So this is a pass by value. It's pass by reference. And so in here, I can call it state. I can call it just S. It doesn't matter. Okay? It's just a local variable inside here. But this variable S here and this state out here, now they're chained together and they are pointing to the same memory location. So if I change the S value in here to something else, even though this is inside its own subroutine, after this line is executed, now state also has been changed because they're chained together. Whereas here, if I pass a state here, because the get density doesn't do any reference it doesn't have the reference to the location, I can change the state to another value, and it has no effect whatsoever to the state outside here. Okay, so that's the main difference between the pass by reference and pass by value. So the pass by value here is again saying something like, here, Corny, here's my credit card, and go buy something, right? Well, I give it to you, you buy something, it then also affects my account because we share the same account, right? If she adds money to it, then I can see as well. If she takes money out of it, I can see as well. So it affects the same place. I can give each of you guys each the same credit card, each share account, then it's the same idea. So that's the by reference. Okay, but the by value is I give you like actual cash. Then of course you can spend it, you can make more money out of it. It does not affect what I have in the account. Okay, so now and then we read the input. Then the state has been read into the S. I just leave the S for now to show you that it doesn't matter what this value is. It won't make a lot of sense here. It will be state. It makes more sense. And then I read the input here from the list box to the S. And then after this line is done, then now S has been changed. And so because S and state are linked together, then the state is also changed. So that's why when I pass the state to the state down here, it knows what to do. Okay. So if you save this and run, hopefully it should still work just like before. Alaska, okay, Hawaii, California, Hawaii, because they're passing by reference to the state, to the get input. So just to prove that doesn't work if you pass by value, notice if I remove that reference out of it. Okay, I move that out. And then, well, before we do that, let's just do this. Let's just say the state, by default state is, we'll put here, Ohio. This is the default state. Okay? That means if I run this, if I don't select anything, just click, it always be, well, in this case, I didn't have any, why it still would not be Ohio? Oh, because when I go in here, it passes by reference, so state has been changed. Let's just say I didn't call this from here. Okay, let me comment this out. Okay, I didn't call this state. So by default, if you don't select anything, then it's going to be Ohio, right? Every time. Now, if I change this to the get state, okay, this is again passed by reference. I didn't change that, still here. So what that means that if I change it, if I click with no selection, it'll be 0 because it reads the data. There's nothing there. If I click Hawaii, it works just like before. Okay. And then notice now if I change the reference here, remove that out. So now I read the input here to the S. but that's it. It's stuck in here. It doesn't go anywhere else. It cannot be used. So even though I call it here, the state will always be Ohio. Okay? I removed the reference. It's no longer pointing to the same location, so it should be that no matter what I select. If I don't select anything, it's Ohio. If I click California, it will still be Ohio. Hawaii, it will still be Ohio. So nothing changes. Okay? Because I forced it to be Ohio, I want to read the state, get the input. Because I did not use a reference, I do have the changes in here. S does have the state of California when I click on that, but I'm not passing that anywhere else. Okay, so if you want to have this S point to the same place, so if you change the value, it does also change the state, then you put the by reference here. Okay, the by reference. So now it should work just as before. No selection will be nothing because it didn't pick anything here. If I check California, then it goes back to where it was before. Okay, so it does make a change if you change the data inside a subroutine or a function. So now if you look at this code, you have read the input, do some displays information here. We will process the data and then you output it. So your main function, main place should be very simple like this. Okay, you don't want to have like 100 lines of code here. Okay, you break it down into its own components, own parts, to do their own things, and then so that way it's easy for you to contain and maintain your code. If there's an error in here, I know exactly where it's going to occur, right in here. I just focus on that part. If it's in here, then it's in here, and so on. So if you make changes to a certain place, just go into those specific subroutine or functions. So just think that if you want to calculate something, and then so any calculation should use a function. Anything that you want to display some data out, use a subroutine. Okay, so that is the advantage and disadvantages of both of them. But it just doesn't mean that you cannot do any calculation inside a subroutine. You can do all the calculation if you want, but it just doesn't make sense. Okay, because that's what functions are for. Functions are to calculate something and get data back to you. Any questions? Okay, so I want to look at the homework assignment.